I couldn't limit myself to 10. Yeah, that's why there are 15 on this list. G'day to all you lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to talk about those series that I'm going to prioritize in 2025. This is a video idea that I've seen floating around BookTube. Several people have done it, and I thought it was a really good idea to just work out for myself as well what I wanted to read next year. But unlike many of the others, I couldn't limit myself to 10. That doesn't mean I'm intending to read all of these series, but it gives me a bit of wiggle room because I am such a mood reader that I know what will happen. I'll decide on 10 series and I may not want to read any of them. At least this way I have more choices. I should also thank Theo from Rekindle Reader. His was the first video I saw where he brought out a list of the 10 priority series that he wanted to read in 2025. Thank you very much, Theo, for the inspiration. And if you guys haven't seen his channel, you have to go and watch him. I think you will really love his content. Before I get on to the actual list, I just wanted to mention a few more things. One is that this list is not exhaustive. It is quite possible some other series will strike my fancy and I'll read that instead of one of these. Second, this list does not include series that I'm in the middle of, like Malazan or The Dark Tower or the Discworld books. All of these series are ones I have not started, except for two. Two of these series I started many years ago, read only 2 books but never finished. And I don't even remember them all that well, so it'll be like reading them for the first time. Third, most of these series are either trilogies or quadrilogies or quartets if you prefer that. And only 2 are over 7 books. And I doubt I will get to those until I have finished at least the Malazan series. Fourth, I'm not committing to reading all of the books in all of these series. It is a question of whether I like them enough to do that. Basically, I'm going to be trying them out and see which ones I like, and those that I like, I will continue and finish them. So let's get started with this list. And I'm going to begin with Memory, Sorrow and Thorn by Tad Williams. I've had this series for a very long time. For some reason, I never finished it. I only read the first 2 books. And it's been at least 20 years, if not more, since I've read it. So my memory is very vague. This is high epic fantasy that was written back in the 80s or began in the 80s. And I remember really loving it. I just don't know why I never finished it. So it's time to finish it, especially since I have now bought the Broken Binding Special Editions, which are gorgeous. You can probably see it behind me somewhere, the first book anyway. So this is a series I'm definitely going to read and finish. Finally, the second series I want to start again and finish is this, the Serpent War Saga by Raymond E. Feist. I have read the first 2 books. Again, my recollection of them is vague because it was at least 20 years ago. I think I was just feisted out at the time because I'd read a lot of his books. But I'd like to start it again and finish it. It is 4 books. They take place in the Midcamia world. I think it is the Southern Kingdom in the Rift War cycle series. And there might be also some familiar characters. From recollection there are, just not the main characters in the earlier books. But this is also another one that I'm intending to read and finish next year. The Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. I've actually read the prologue, but I was in the middle of so many other series, I thought I better wait until I finish some of those before I start this and really get into it. There are only 3 books so far. It is epic fantasy. I really liked the prologue and the writing, and this world seems unique to me. But obviously I have not read enough to know whether I'm going to love it. I'm assuming I will, and then I'll read all 3 books in the series. I think the author is coming out either with the 4th or a novella, but I've got to read these first. Yeah. The Hyperion series by Dan Simmons. I actually thought I would get to it in 2024, and I haven't so far, and at the time of recording this, it is the middle of November. I just don't think I will get to it this year, but I'm determined to read this series. Hopefully I will love it, and I'll read all 4 books in the series. The Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I have been wanting to read this as well for at least 2 years, and I haven't started it, so this is definitely a priority for 2025. This is high epic fantasy, I believe, and I think it might even have a Viking influence, which I do enjoy. I don't really know too much about most of these series, as I try to avoid any spoilers. But this is one I really hope I will get to next year. Whether I will read the entire series will depend upon whether I actually love the first book. So I guess you guys will find out. Another series I really want to get to in 2025, and I don't have the book here, is the Rhyria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. I've read the first chapter and I really liked it. I like the banter and the humor. This is also epic fantasy, but that's about the limit of what I know. I really liked Sullivan's writing. It was very easy to read and I loved the humor. So hopefully I will get to at least that series next year. I know he has several others, but let's see first if I love the first series. The First Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson. Now I have this trilogy. There are 3 books. I started it, hated something that the main character did, and decided, no, I don't want to read this. But that was many, many years ago. I'm much older, hopefully a little wiser, more experienced, and I want to retry this series and see if I can get past that and read the entire series. Several of my friends liked this series and raved about it, but at that time I wasn't interested in reading about what I thought was an anti-hero. Now I'm more interested in reading about morally great characters, so hopefully I will love the first book and then I'll read the entire series. This is the first trilogy, but I believe there is a second. The Dark Glass Mountain series by Sarah Douglas. I cannot believe I have not read this. I've had it for donkey's years. I've read most of Douglas's books, but for some reason this one escaped my notice. I'm wondering if I bought it when I really had stopped reading fantasy and just collected it because it was by Douglas, who is my favourite Australian author. I have no idea what this series is about, but I'm determined to read it. It's only a trilogy of 3 books, and as far as I'm concerned, or I should say, out of all the Australian authors I've read, I think Sarah Douglas was the best. Yeah. Another science fiction series I really want to read next year is The 3-Body Problem. I don't have it here. By Cixin Liu, I think his name is. My apologies to the author if I got that wrong. This, of course, is a series that many people have been talking about on BookTube in 2024. There is a show based on the books, but I like to read the books before I watch the show. So I'm hoping to start that next year, and if I love it, then I'll read the entire series. The Tyrant Philosopher series, I think, by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I have not read any of his books, and when I saw this cover, it's so beautiful, I couldn't resist buying it. But more than that, so many people have been raving about it, and I think it might be right up my alley. I'm not sure if it's steampunk or if that is another series of his, but it's not also a very long book. There are 3 books in the series out so far, and I believe they are kind of loosely connected rather than a trilogy as such. I'm still waiting to receive the 3rd, but I think I will be starting this quite soon. I might even start it before the end of the year. I'm not sure yet. This is the Wanderers series by Chuck Wendig. Post-apocalyptic, I think, or dystopian. Very thick, but it is only 2 books. I saw this series on Kim the Paper Traveler's channel, and I do love post-apocalyptic stories or dystopian stories, so I thought, why not, especially being only 2 books. In fact, the 2nd book I got for a ridiculous $10, a hardcover. It was during one of those Amazon Prime sales. So I've been waiting to get this one. I've got it. I haven't started it. This will, though, most likely be a priority in 2025. The Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham, who is half of the writing team of The Expanse. It's a very small book. Alan from the Library of Alexandria absolutely loves this series, and I think he's very well known for it. But it sounds interesting to me. Right up my alley. There are 4 books in the series. I only have the first one. I'm trying very hard not to buy all the books in the series before I've read at least one to make sure I'm not wasting my time. But I suspect I'm really going to enjoy this. Another series I really want to start in 2025 is the Foundry Side series by Robert Jackson Bennett. I only own the first 2 books. I cannot find the first in hardcover, but one day I will. Nevertheless, this is a series that sounds really interesting to me. It is a steampunk fantasy, I believe, and I always like things that are a little different to what I normally read, which is usually very classic fantasy. It's only 3 books. Whether I actually start it next year or not, I'm not sure. Sometimes I like to wait until I actually have the physical book, so it might get read next year, it might not. But it is definitely one of my priorities for 2025. Now, the last 2 series are both longer series, which I will most likely not start until I finish Malazan at least. Perhaps I might just start the first books in these 2 series and then wait until I finish Malazan before I really get into them, assuming I love them. The first one is the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio, another one that everyone is talking about on Book YouTube. My understanding is it is a bit like space opera, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting to me. I'm not really into hard science fiction, but I do like science fiction that is a bit on the space opera side. So that is one I definitely want to start and see if I like it or not. I might even read that before the end of the year. I have no idea actually. Because I am such a mood reader, I might decide, yeah, I'm in the mood to start this. And that is more for me to decide, is this a series I like and will I continue with that? Sometimes I do read more than 1 book in a series before I make up my mind. And sometimes you know immediately that you love a series and you're going to read all of them. And sometimes things change in the middle of series as well. But I definitely want to at least start the Sun Eater series next year, if not earlier. And the last series is The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. Now, I have watched the first season of the TV show long before I knew about the books, and I loved the show. So I think I'm going to love this series, but I don't know for sure until I've actually read it. I have several of the books in the series, and this one is 9 books plus, I think, either short stories or a novella, and I'd like to at least start it next year. I doubt very much I'll finish it, but never say never, right? Who knows? So that is my 15 priority series that I want to start at least in 2025. Unlikely I will read all of the books in this series in 2025, but some of the shorter ones, it's very doable for me. I like to read some shorter series when I'm reading a long series as well. I just don't like having 2 long series going at the same time. So now, of course, I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you think there are any that I should put on the top of the list? Because honestly, other than Memory, Sorrow and Thorn and the Serpent War Saga, I don't care when I get to some of these. But if you think I should give them higher priority, you know I'd love to hear. And I'd also love to hear what series you are prioritizing in 2025. Which ones do you really want to read next year? You know, I always want to hear from you guys. Well, thank you all very much for watching. That's all I have for you guys today. And if you enjoyed this video, then you know what to do. You can like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. So that is my 15 priority series. I can't say priority. So that is my 15 priority series. Oh my God. Yeah. I wanted to thank all my patrons, but a big shout out to my book dragons, Gabriella, Johanna, Joe, Kiki, Laurie, and Michael.